Warriors, I'm not going to lie to you, man. If they would have lost that game last night, it would have sucked the life
When
out
that
of
three went up in the air.
Oh.
First off, when Kuminga turned the ball over to Curry.
On the fast break, looking for Curry. He throws it away.
Head, I go, you got to get. And then who was it, Laurie, who hit the three?
Yep.
I go, you got to
get.
Colin Sexton destroyed them last night.
Oh, Colin Sexton's a player.
He destroyed them.
I thought Utah was going to be in on him or trading him. I wanted him and Walker Kessler. Because Walker Kessler's is big. Now, he has his flaws, no doubt about it, but the guy's a presence around the rim. Colin Sexton blows by anybody. And Keontae George, rookie out of Baylor.
Well, how about Klay stop on him?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There was a couple defensive plays Klay made.
Yeah.
One on Jordan Clarkson in the first half, bodying him up, moving his feet very, very well. And, of course, the travel that Klay Thompson forced on Keontae George. That was a great defensive play there. But Keontae George, 9 threes yesterday, 9 of 16, 33 points. Look, Colin Sexton and Keontae George combined for 68.
It's crazy.
But what's crazier is the Warriors score 140, and Steph Curry only scores 16.
Yeah, it wasn't his best game.
No, it wasn't. But he dropped 10 dimes yesterday.
Yes.
You got a nice effort from Andrew Wiggins, who started off hot. I thought Andrew Wiggins' defense on Lauri Markkanen was exceptional.
Agreed.
6 of 23 from the floor. Give Wiggins credit for that. But obviously the headline's going to be Klay Thompson. Because when we got the alert that he was coming off the bench.
I was pretty surprised.
Well, I wasn't surprised that he was coming off the bench. I was surprised by the timing of it.
What do you mean?
A game before the All-Star break. I thought, okay, maybe you reset during the All-Star break. You come back against the Lakers after a week of practice and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mix things up. But to do it the game before the All-Star break, and I think it would have been easy for any professional to say, you know what, I'm coming off the bench for the first time in a long time. I'm already thinking about Cabo. Forget this game. But the response Klay Thompson had, I think he deserves credit for that because that's not an easy thing to do. Checking his ego. And he admitted after the game. And look, the whole starting thing is so overrated because guess what? He didn't start yesterday. And the starting unit was a -5 in the first quarter. They were down 18-13, and Klay checked into the game.
They didn't defend
I keep explaining myself over and over. Ever since July when Chris Paul got traded here, it doesn't matter who starts. It really doesn't matter. I don't care who starts. I know you don't care. Maybe you care. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for you.
Some of the guys themselves care, but I agree with your overall sentiment.
Yeah, I personally don't care who starts. To me, it's always been about who's finishing the game.
That I agree with.
And Klay admitted last night, he cursed out the assistant coaches because he didn't finish the game and he wasn't finishing games. And they knew that. And that's going to be something to monitor when Chris Paul gets back. There's going to be an odd man out. J.K., Wiggins, Klay. But you know what? You can't care about feelings. You have to win basketball games.
So you bring it up like there's going to be an odd man out. There was a point at the beginning of the fourth quarter where it was all the youngsters, and Keonis and Pajemski, et cetera. And they had Wiggins with them. And I was like, no. I know you want to have the one vet with all of these youngsters. Right. Play J.K. with them. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see J.K. I like J.K. to start the fourth quarter because I think he gets favorable matchups. He goes against lesser defenders. He's able to be the primary scorer out on the floor, and I feel like Pajemski does a great job setting him up. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I could feel it coming. The JK minutes are going to start to taper off, and I worry. And I'm seeing these lineups, this consistent lineup with Looney and GP2 together, and I'm like, stop putting the two non-shooters together.
Yeah, no, that's a problem. But JK, you mentioned that one, 24 minutes, 28 seconds. Again, it's a matter of time. Somebody's not going to be finishing. Somebody's not going to get their minutes. Now, Klay Thompson, whether he starts or comes off the bench, he averages 30 minutes a game. He played 28 last night. Mm-hmm. And finally, he realized it. But I do want to play some of the sound after the game. Go ahead.
You brought up the minutes.
Yeah. JK or what?
This could mean nothing. This could mean something. And that's why I want to ask you. You are as dialed in on this team as anyone I know. Okay. When Klay plays, it might have nothing to do with anything. I want to preface that. But I saw a stat. When Klay plays under 30 minutes, the Warriors are 17-9. When Klay plays over 30 minutes, they're 10-17. Is that random? Is that coincidence? What do you make of that?
I would say it's a little random because of so many guys being in and out of the lineup. Rotations haven't been consistent.
Okay.
Guys haven't been consistent. But there's no doubt that Klay, Look, his
there's
legs
a
look
sweet
fresher.
spot of minutes.
There's a sweet spot. I always thought his sweet spot was 28 to 32.
Okay.
No more
Which
than
is
that.
right in the
no
wheelhouse.
matter. And he played 28 last night.
That's perfect.
But to me, and Klay was cool with it. Klay was cool with it. He had to talk. And look, he wasn't playing well. There's no doubt. Last 11 games, he's shooting like 29% from three. He was in a major slump. Now, he thought he busted out of it Monday night against Utah. That wasn't the case, as he had a rough game against the Clippers, going 1-9 from the three-point line, committing that egregious foul, and it was just a matter of time. This is the evolution of Klay Thompson, and him having perspective in Logan Murdoch's article in The Ringer saying, look, man, I've always modeled my game after Ray Allen and Reggie Miller. What did they do later in their career? They came off the bench and became sharpshooters. Again, I don't think coming off the bench is a big deal. I never did. It's about who's going to finish the game. And J.K., something to monitor with the minutes. 24 minutes, 28 seconds. We already see it how. I was watching a game with Willie Fezzi. I was like, dude, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists for J.K., but he wasn't out there for moments.
No, it felt like the usage and the situational matchups for him weren't there.
Yep.
Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. And he turned that ball over to Curry late in the game.
He was forcing. That's what happens when he's not playing. He starts to force it, and then he starts to look over his shoulder. So, down the stretch, look, only 5 can play. Chris Paul will be coming back. And if you don't think Chris Paul's going to be in some closing lineups, think again, buddy. Think again.
Well, and here's where I would say, like, Chris Paul is an excellent player, but I'm looking at the totality of this Warrior season, and from years past, we learned when you depreciate the young players, the next year you don't get that valuable experience and development. And so I'm watching Podziemski and I'm watching Jonathan Kuminga get valuable in-game reps.
Yep.
And if that comes to taper down because at the expense of putting in Chris Paul, who's probably not going to be on this team next year, I have a problem with that.
It's going to be something to monitor here. Let's hear from Klay Thompson. His post-game interview is really good. I think, listen, man, I know what Klay is. I know what Klay isn't, and we've all taken calls. We've gone back and forth with Klay. But how many athletes do you get out here who is so vulnerable, who just expresses themselves? There's a lot of athletes who's been guarded. I've gone to 1 million pressers in my career. 1 million pressers. There's a lot of coaches, a lot of players who just won't say much. And then you get a Klay Thompson who just lets it fly, right? He lets it fly.
Who did I say to you this morning? Brandon Ayuk. I watched that whole press conference with him, and he's wearing the shades. And at first, I'm like, oh, like he doesn't want to talk to anyone. No. He was hiding his emotion because he cared. He clearly was heartbroken that the team lost the way that they did. That meant so much to him. I want all my athletes to care that much.
He was crying, man. It hurts. It hurts. We'll get to the Super Bowl a little bit
sorry,
later.
I can't get over the Super Bowl.
Nobody can.
But you're right about Klay.
Nobody could get over the Super Bowl. Let's hear from Klay Thompson on finding out when he was coming off the bench.
Found out this morning. Me and Steve had a good talk about it. You know, you could do 2 things. You can pout or you can go out there and respond. And I thought I did the latter very well tonight, especially no turnovers, and I missed a few box outs though. But more importantly, I realized I'm going to play a ton of minutes. So you just got to let the ego go when you think of coming off the bench and all that. So, I mean, I thought about Manu Ginobili. That guy has 4 rings and gold medal, and he came off the bench his whole career. And I don't think anyone looks down on his Hall of Fame candidacy. He's one of the greats, and I thought I embraced it before tip. I mean, I deserved it, really. I didn't respond to the not playing at the end of the game well last night. I kind of took it out on the assistant coaches, and I apologized to those guys before the game. And I think that really let my guard down and let me just be myself out there.
Now listen to what he said.
It takes a man, it takes a man to admit that in front of the world like that.
And it
really does.
What he said, he goes, I was not happy about finishing. Finishing, folks. Everybody made a big deal. I remember at the Warriors Summit, Mark Willard kept asking us a question about what's going to happen if Chris Paul he wants to start. Dude, it ain't about that. It's about who's finishing, homie. Watch the game and know these players in and out. Klay Thompson just told you he was ticked off about finishing, not being out there in a crunch time. Final 5 minutes where everybody makes their money, where legacies are made, where memories are made, where legends are born. The last 5 minutes of the game, and he was not happy. Now he's relaxed. Listen to him. Listen to him. He was asked, I don't know who asked the question, but was he playing loose?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the moment you worry about what people say or what headlines will be written about being benched or the streak being broken is when you go out there and you don't play with that love, that compassion for your teammates, and that freedom that has gotten me to this point. So I realized that I didn't want to go to All-Star break on a sour note and have my best game of the season, hopefully build off it.
And so, and this is where I kind of dig deeper when it comes to these athletes and think about their backgrounds. And we always talk about, well, where do they come from? Do they come from an NBA lineage or whatnot? His father, Michael Thompson, was the #1 overall pick coming out of Minnesota. He was a Minnesota Golden Gopher. Got drafted #1 by the Portland Trail Blazers. Injuries, whatever. He goes to San Antonio, gets traded to the LA Lakers. Oh, he's like, you come off the bench. This is a former #1 overall pick, his father. Fine, I'll come off the bench. He wins 2 championships with the LA Lakers. They go back-to-back. So if there's anybody who could talk to Klay Thompson, he has his own dad. He could just call on speed dial. How did you handle this? How do I get perspective? His own father. Now, Klay's a different guy, no doubt about it. But his own father was a #1 overall pick who later on became a very important bench player for the LA Lakers going back-to-back in 87 and 88. He's got perspective there. He knows the game.
But name me a great team that had multiple runs where you didn't have a valuable sixth man who essentially was a starter.
Yep.
The Warriors had Iguodala. You know, the Detroit Pistons had Vinny the Microwave Johnson. You know, they referenced, obviously, Manu Ginobili coming off the bench. Like, all of the great teams.
Tony Kukoc, Chicago Bulls.
Exactly. Like, they all have that key ingredient guy who probably closed 90% of the time.
Exactly.
But needed to be, you know, for whatever reason, for the connectivity of all the lineups. You know, Luke Longley didn't finish games for the Bulls.
He barely played 10 minutes. you know what I'm saying? The whole starting thing is like, oh, starter, oh, who starts, who starts?
But I do think there's, to your point, I do think certain guys in the league, it does matter, and credit Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson or whoever to connect, communicate, and figure out that, like, big picture, it's about where your minutes are allocated, how we can squeeze the lemon for you and get the most efficient version of yourself and help the team win. And credit to everyone for being on the same page.
No doubt. We're going to get to